Also, Nick, you need to give a fat tip.
A fat tip?
Remember the fat tip? Remember the fat tip for fat people?
Oh yeah, fat tip for fat people. The fat tip for fat people is, I don't know. Masturbation does. No, I don't want to do that. That's not gonna work. I changed my mind. I changed my mind.
I'm interested what route that was going though.
When you masturbate, you need to fold it up.
That's
it.
not it. If you just
Using
raise it up and down a lot.
Nick's over here. Nick, here's the fat tip for you. When you masturbate, use the bra tape to hold up your boobs, to hold up your belly, so that way you can masturbate easier.
I was gonna say masturbate standing up to get more heart blood flow, have more of a workout. All right, and welcome back everyone to a new episode of Drunken Jurors. This one's gonna be a little bit different because Jeff has worked like 70 hours the past 3 weeks each. My paychecks have been glorious, but my body fucking hurts, and I have had no time to do research. So I am greatly sorry for that, but next one we'll get back to normal stuff. But we got something different. Nick wanted to throw something different, and if it doesn't work, flame him on social media. I don't fucking know.
I will never look at it. Actually, I will, because I now have push notifications for Twitter on my phone, and I hate it.
I'm Jeff also, by the
all
way.
right. I'm Adam.
I'm Javier, and if you could see my new haircut, that makes sense.
Oof.
That's a lot of shade that no one really gets. That's a lot of shade. That's just none of that works.
Only you are doing the unedited. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Jesus Christ. So
I'm drinking vodka and orange. Dude, we still have a whole intro we do. How do you...
We do have an intro.
Nick's forgotten.
I'm excited.
Well, fucking stop. I'm drinking vodka and orange juice, and then I have some Budweiser, the usual.
You're not gonna believe this.
Oh God,
it's Arbor Mist.
I'm drinking Arbor Mist.
Oh my God, what do I win?
How many episodes has it been?
Too fucking many, but I still have a whole bottle left.
It's been at least 2 months worth of episodes.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I don't think I like this anymore. Like, I don't think I like this wine anymore.
Honestly, just a slight change in flavors of Arbor Mist would do you justice.
It's like being caught smoking a cigarette when you're in high school and being forced to smoke the whole pack.
That's essentially what's happening to my life right now.
It's not like you don't have other alcohol either.
It's true.
But I do have this.
It is true. I'm drinking Corona that was left at my house at the last party. I fucking hate Corona, mainly because it smells like marijuana. So yeah.
It does have a horrible stench to it.
It's not that bad to drink. It's just the stench, dude. When you pop one open, it's just like, ooh.
Any beer you gotta add a lime to, probably not all that great.
I also don't have limes. I also don't add lime because that's a lot of work.
Do you have lime juice?
Why would I have lime juice?
I feel like that's the thing that every fridge has.
You got to remember, Nick barely cooks.
Also, Nick Nick, you probably do have lime juice in that fridge. You just don't know where.
It's true. It's also probably older than me. So, like Jeff said, we're doing something different today. What I would like to call this is the drunken jury of public opinion. So what we're going to take here is a controversial historical figure, and I'm going to make you kind of like them.
See, the thing is that's how you want to call it, but I'm literally just going to name this Drunken Jurors episode whatever. I think it's like 13, maybe. I don't know. Drunken Jurors episode 13. Are they okay? Question mark.
What I would like to call this if I was editing it would be the drunken jury of public opinion.
We'll mix them. Of public, are they okay?
I can work with that.
It's not going to be that.
take that. We're gonna take this historical figure, and I'm gonna tell you things that you probably didn't know about them, and I'm gonna make you kind of like them. Or at least that's the end goal. Hopefully, I can change your minds a little bit. So,
Adolf Hitler, go.
we're not. No.
Oh, that's not the starting episode for the segment.
No. What? Oh, yeah. Because I'm sure his art was nice.
I actually saw
His
pictures
art,
of it.
his
It's
art was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. His lance. So the whole thing apparently was that like the art at the time was focused around portraits, and he
did, like,
couldn't do a
landscape,
portrait
right?
to save his ass.
Yeah,
he sucked at portraits.
He did like
but his
landscapes
landscapes were
and stuff.
amazing. Yeah. His landscapes and architecture was amazing, but his portrait sucked dick.
Can you imagine how many people Adolf Hitler liked to disappoint? Because even the people who wanted to kill him didn't get that opportunity.
The thing that makes it weird that portraits were big then is the fact that photographs were coming out by that then.
Yeah.
And like, why wouldn't you just pay the extra money to get a nice looking photograph instead of
it was
portrait?
Europe, and Europe was all about tradition. So
what?
Yeah.
That doesn't add up.
All right. So
So are we. We're always about tradition. Ferda.
First time in about 8 episodes, if not since the first season.
Yep. Ooh, that's not good.
Please, no
All
one
right.
fact check that.
Yeah.
Or actually,
also-
someone do fact check that.
Yeah, we strayed away from that for a long time. And I kind of hate it because I always remember it after we record, and I'm like, why aren't we doing that anymore? And then we record, and I don't fucking think of it.
I think just doing it on Zoom is different.
Yeah. All right. So, fellow drunks of the jury, today I will not defend the actions of a traitor, but rather I will tell you the story of an American hero. A warrior who never once hesitated to lead his men into battle, a man who only wanted respect.
Rush Limbaugh.
Respect he was clearly
Robert E. Lee.
respect he was certainly owed, but for the politics of a blossoming nation, he was denied and was forced to look for that respect elsewhere. And
Queen
would in the
Cleopatra.
end find it nowhere. Today we are talking about one Benedict Arnold. I wouldn't mind doing one
Definitely
about
thought he
Robert
was
E.
going to
Lee.
say Benedict Cumberbatch. So-
I wouldn't mind doing one on Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee is another fascinating figure who bad for treason again, but just in general a fascinating historical figure. So,
Played by Bill Hader.
what movie?
Night at the Museum.
I fucking hate you. I hate you so much. All right. Just you ruin everything. All right.
What you want to bet? That Adam knows everything about this guy from a movie.
Yeah, probably from fucking Hamilton, probably.
It's going to be between Night at the Museum 2 and Hamilton, because I know,
I'm still seeking redemption since that. All right. So Benedict Arnold was born January 14th, 1741 in Norwich, Connecticut. He was the second son of Benedict Arnold and Hannah Waterman King Arnold. His grandfather was also Benedict. So was his great-grandfather. His older brother died before he was 1 and was also named Benedict. So basically, none of these people. Yeah,
Making the
and none
fifth?
of these people had suffixes. So it was just they named their kid Benedict, and if he died before like the other one was born, they could just reuse it. So it was just rinse and repeat with Benedict. His kid was also named Benedict, for the record. He had a kid named Benedict.
Also,
I
if
don't
you
know.
name your kid
There's
a
not much-
junior, you're just kind of garbage at this point, honestly.
It just means that you're lazy. I don't
or
think
you
you're
found a really cool name and chose.
You couldn't find a cool new way to spell a normal name.
Maybe he.
Spelling
Did they,
is at it?
did they spell Benedict different every time?
Fuck
No,
no.
it's just Benedict. No,
What
it's
makes
just
you think they
Benedict
had
Arnold.
that?
Yeah.
If they named that many kids, what makes you think that they went through the fucking complications of actually trying to find a different way to spell it every time?
it gets better. The imagination of their family gets better. So, his sister, his mother was named Hannah. Guess what his sister's name was?
Hannah.
Yep.
Was it spelled
Things they
backwards
were-
though?
Yeah. God,
Was her
the-
mom
the-
Hannah and hers was Hannah?
How did you know? What were you looking at my Google Doc? Is that it?
Palindromes.
So is race car.
Thanks. You know the one that everyone knows why a palindrome is a palindrome.
I actually learned it from Hannah. So
Montana?
I hate you so much.
Did you know Montana backwards is still a palindrome if you switch around the letters?
If you spell it differently? Yeah.
You flip
all
it
right,
around
so-
and then you unscramble
By
it.
the way,
Still spells
this
like
is
it.
now educational.
This entire thing was going to be educational.
But now it 100%
It's
is
even
for
more
sure.
educational. I got
I
you.
can double tag it with
It's
a capital E
educate-
and a lower
It's
E.
educational squared now.
The Benedict Arnold we're talking about today, his great grandfather was the governor of
Alabama?
New Hampshire, I think.
I don't think
when
we
it was
had
first
Alabama
founded.
in 1700s, my guy.
We didn't. That was a French territory.
Yep,
So
this is still like the original colonies, isn't it? Like the original, like
it's
12,
7. He
13.
was born in 1741. Yeah. So
Hold
He
on.
was-
I would really quickly like to point out that I said Alabama, we all laughed at me, and Jeff said 12 colonies, and we just
I said 13. I said 13,
Over
12.
that.
Hey, your dad's behind you.
I saw that. I think dinner's ready.
It's 13, right? I'm not.
It is
stupid.
13.
Okay.
it was
is
13. Yes. So his grandfather, governor of New Hampshire, and then he
But
did
he was-
other things.
But he was born
then
in Connecticut.
Yes, people moved.
Why?
And each of them, like each of his ancestors, was more and more successful. Like they were successful merchants. His father ran a very successful business.
You ran a very successful New Hampshire, I would like to think.
No, that was his great grandfather.
Oh shit! God damn it!
Yeah.
Already.
His
forgetting.
father was just a businessman. Yes. But so here, before I go any further, I want to ask you this: what is your general knowledge on Benedict Arnold?
Nothing.
Nothing. All
I
right.
literally don't know shit about him at all.
You don't know shit about Benedict Arnold. Okay.
No,
No.
so I don't care about U.S. history until about 10 years before the Civil War.
Fair. I mean, it's a very interesting 10 years. So Adam, what do you know about Benedict Arnold since Mr. I watch Hamilton daily?
Benedict Arnold was not
Hamilton.
in Hamilton.
He wasn't. I guess that makes sense. Do you know anything about Benedict Arnold?
I honestly just know his name.
He's same. That's
right.
literally all I know. Yet,
All
like
right.
I said, okay, maybe more than 10 years. Maybe like like a couple years before the gold rush to
Mhm.
like through, I know, but anything before
All right.
that, don't
Th-
fucking care.
Honestly, that makes us better because it means you're an impartial jury, and I can maybe swing you to my side.
Probably not.
All right, probably not.
I'm gonna look
I
up
couldn't
what he
swing
did
myself.
now.
I couldn't swing myself to my
Nyu,
side. on
nyu.
this.
Benedict Arnold.
Treason.
Yep.
Treason.
Nope.
Yep.
I got that part.
All right. So his father was a successful merchant in Norwich and was able to send his son to a very prestigious private school in Canterbury, which was like 20 miles away.
What's a prestigious
Uh,
school in the fucking 1700s?
It was private. It was just a private school.
Aren't they all? They all have like 6 kids in them.
Wasn't Harvard around in the 70s?
Yale, yeah. So the
In
original
Yale?
goal for him was to go to these schools and then eventually become a lawyer at Yale. Like that was his original plan. That was the original plan his family had for him, was to become a lawyer from Yale.
I was gonna say it's like
Um,
Yale and like what's the
Harvard. There was
Harvard and like is it Camp Point? What's the military school?
West Point.
West Point. That's it. Where the
West,
fuck are
West
you?
Point wasn't a college; it was just a fort at that
Yeah.
point. West Point didn't become a college until 1850s, I believe.
It's still there. though.
So, yeah, it was still there. West Point plays a very crucial role in the story. While there, 3 of his 4 remaining siblings died of yellow fever because that was the fun colonial pastime that people did back in the day.
So it wasn't tuberculosis yet, or whatever the fuck that
No,
is.
no. Tuberculosis was like if
Don't
yellow
be
fever
silly.
didn't get you. If yellow fever didn't get you, tuberculosis was like right behind you.
I like to think of those like things back then as like what they're just walking in your house one by one. If you could peek past the next one, you can see out the door a line of more diseases with like bats and clubs and shit just ready to walk in and beat your ass.
If tuberculosis didn't get you, it was like scurvy.
Or we need to bring nail you hit that one time
for Mandy's sake, to prove her wrong, to make Garrett happy in our group chat. We need to bring scurvy back.
I don't want to bring scurvy back. I don't want to know what scurvy does to tattoos. I can only imagine, because those are scars. I don't want to imagine what they do. So the only sibling that survived was Hannah. His younger sister, who was like 2 years younger than him, I think. And she'd become like the rock in his life. She'd end up essentially running his business and raising his kids while he was at war. As a child, he was always the center of attention, and if he wasn't, he would do some wild stunt or pull a prank to become the center of attention. If he was not the center, he was it. Like, there was a story in the book. The book I used for a source was, let me pull that up.
The Untold Story of Hamilton.
No. I don't know where you think I would get that.
The credit scene of Hamilton.
I hate you. The Notorious Benedict Arnold, A True Story of Adventure, Heroism, and Treachery by Stephen Schenken.
Steven Seagal.
It's actually a really good book.
Fuck Steven Seagal.
Yeah, Steven Seagal is never someone I will defend on this podcast. So there was one story where he was standing in line to get grain, and to grind grain at the water mill, and he just jumped on the mill, went underwater, and rode it because no one was paying attention and he was bored. He was one of those kids.
A piece of shit.
While desperate for attention, those around him would later talk about his determination, courage, and quick thinking. This quick thinking was either problem solving or some smart ass remark that got him in trouble. And it got him in trouble a lot. After the death of his siblings, Arnold's father, Benedict Arnold, became a raging alcoholic. Which, I get. Having, most of your kids die young.
It's also the fucking 1700s, dude. Like,
everyone was a raging alcoholic.
Yeah.
That was really all there was to do.
If you were a male, you were probably drunk almost most of the day.
His drinking became so bad that the family business began to fall apart, and they were no longer able to pay for Arnold's schooling. His mother would end up dying when he was 18. Leaving him to care for his father and sister by becoming an apprentice at an apothecary. He actually became pretty good at it, making some good medicines, and he was able to sell those. After his mother's death, Arnold had the regular job of dragging his father, who was blackout drunk, from the local tavern and taking him home. Arnold watched his father single-handedly destroy his family name and lose the respect of the community. While this would leave a lasting imprint on Arnold throughout his life. If Benedict Arnold wasn't given the respect he thought he deserved, he would do whatever it took to get it. While in his 20s, Arnold was really good at two things: merchant trading and
alcoholism.
Dueling. Yeah, He never became an alcoholic.
Fucking sad.
After watching his father, he never became an alcoholic.
I probably would have.
We are now. Look at what we do.
Everyone, look at this podcast. Look at us if you're watching the unedited. Look me in the fucking eyes. Don't do what we do.
As two skills to get in the 1700s, those aren't bad ones, because you make money and you're a really good shot. In 1762, he started in a business in New Haven.
Hold on, before you go any further, you also need to listen back to the last Drunken Jurors and realize that being a really good duelist back then is more of pure 100% luck or money.
Mainly because these had no rifling in their pistols. Or there was minimal rifling.
Back then, wasn't it still like a fucking muzzle load?
It was muzzle load. There may have been minimal rifling in the pistols. One of the reasons that Americans won the war was Kentucky rifles. And Kentucky rifles took twice as long to load, but there was actually really good rifling in the barrel. So that meant from like a quarter mile away, they were able to sit in trees and just pick off officers, which the British hated because it was considered an illegality in modern warfare.
But remember, modern warfare, you also had little fucking drummer boys going around fucking drumming and people.
They typically weren't shot, though. They were typically
but it's like,
granted, they shot medics, so.
But like, what? Yeah, that's a big no now. If you're wondering,
yeah,
that's
they shot medics, but can't kill an officer. The amount of people that get captured in warfare at this time is amazing. Like they were capturing 6,000 people at a time with minimal losses. So
I mean, you would like because you kill off the officers, then you just walk over to their entire army, and you're like, come with us.
Arnold's business was in New Haven, and it was selling books, maps, and medicine, which he learned to make while apprenticing. His shop was up and running and profitable within a year, with his sister Hannah running the business while he was away on trading ships. With the passing of the Stamp Act of 1765, Arnold became a smuggler and a son of liberty. Because if there's one thing every American hates, even today, it's fucking taxes.
If you're wondering, that's one of the huge reasons for the Revolutionary War. And guess what never went away?
Yeah. Actually, it did. And
for like a while, but
there were no federal taxes until 1919, I think. No, 1921 was when the federal income tax got established.
Right before the fucking goddamn depression hit, really.
I think it was in the middle. I can't remember. That's for another time. So in 1767, he married Margaret Mansfield, the daughter of the local sheriff. They had 3 kids, all of whom lived to be accomplished lives. One interesting thing about his kids, so he had 2 wives, Margaret and then what's her name? Margaret and
at different times, right? Like this is before the Mormonism, polygamy
yes.
bullshit.
This was well before Lee John or whatever.
Does his first one die or something?
Yes.
Okay, I was gonna say I feel like he wouldn't have got divorced.
So Margaret and Peggy Shipton. One interesting thing is that all of his kids with Margaret became respected American officers. All of his kids with Peggy became respected British officers. You'll see why, and it's actually a really interesting thing to look at. At some point during his travels, Arnold was insulted by a British captain who claimed that Arnold was telling lies about him. So naturally, he challenged the captain to a duel. The captain fired his pistol. So at this time, duels took place as one guy, the grieved party, would fire his shot from however many paces, and then the other guy would fire his shot, and then it would just go on until someone died or someone gave up. So the captain fired his pistol and missed. Arnold fired his, nicked the captain in the arm. Before the surgeon that was there on standby bandaged the arm, and the British captain reloaded his shot. Before the captain could fire again, Arnold told the man, "If you miss and fail to kill me with this shot, I promise you, sir, I will not repay the courtesy." The captain apologized for confusing Arnold with another sailor, and they went on their way. There are several more stories of Arnold's temper getting him into hot water. Fortunately for him, his wit and his pistol always bailed him out, at least according to Arnold. In reality, he always had the right friends at the right time.
Honestly, we need to bring dueling back, but like without guns, just beating the fuck out of each other, just like an octagon.
Oh, that is an octagon. That's the MMA. It's just the MMA. What do you mean? We already have that.
Yeah, but no, like that's not dueling. Those are people who sign up for that shit.
At this time, dueling was beginning. Actually, in Americas, dueling became frowned upon in like the mid 1800s. In Europe, dueling was a thing all the way up until World War I. Like, duels were huge. When Arnold heard of the Boston Massacre, where 5 colonists were killed by the British Army, he was disgusted that his fellow countrymen did not immediately take vengeance on the British and was an early voice for war. In March 1775, Arnold was put in charge of the Connecticut attack on British-held Fort Ticonderoga. When he arrived to lead the attack, the majority of his forces refused to listen to him, opting to obey his subordinate Ethan Allen. Isn't that a furniture company, Ethan Allen?
I don't know if it's furniture, but that sounds familiar.
It's a company, right? Ethan Allen's a company.
I don't know if it's Ethan Allen, but that does sound familiar. Yeah, it is furniture. Yeah, Ethan Allen. It's in Chicago. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a furniture company in Chicago.
I don't know if there's any relation there, but I remember hearing that and finding it interesting.
Origin.
Yeah. On May 10th, the attack began and the poorly defended fort fell with all British forces being captured. This was basically Allen.
Hold on. He was
men.
Hold on. Yeah. Ethan Allen was he a Vermont revolutionary leader?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, it's named after him.
All right.
Because the company started as a housewares manufacturer in 1932 when they bought a bankrupt furniture factory in Beecher Falls, Vermont. And they named it after Ethan Allen, after the Vermont revolutionary leader.
Another interesting thing, Vermont was never part of the colonial army or the colonial war.
Yeah, they
Vermont
got to make syrup.
Its own republic. No, it was its own republic.
Yeah, for syrup.
Up until the founding and the Bill of Rights passed, and then they became part of the U.S. So technically, Jeff's right. It was the 12 colonies. Technically, Jeff was right.
Hey, Adam, fucking look at me. Yeah, fuck you. After several
shouting matches and arguments, one ending with Allen putting a gun in Arnold's face, Arnold left Fort Ticonderoga and thought, this fort isn't big enough for two huge egos. So he sailed his happy ass up Lake Champlain and raided Fort Saint Jean in Canada for fun. He also stole the largest ship on Lake Champlain and firebombed the rest of the British ships.
God, I kind of wish I was alive back then. You know how fun it would be if you're just in the army and your commander just went, hey, so we're just gonna go raid this fort for funsies, and it's just yes, let's go.
Oh, you don't get it. That was Arnold's entire shtick. Was, hey, there's that fort over there. Wouldn't it be cool if you raided it?
Wouldn't it be cool if it was no longer their fort?
And his superiors fucking hated him for it. He then got into another pissing match with Allen about who was the commander of the fort, and of course, neither of them would end up commanding it. It would instead be commanded by Colonel Benjamin Hinneman, because he arrived with 1,000 men and orders to command the fort from the Massachusetts Committee of Safety.
Was his cousin Ben Cinnamon?
After Hinneman arrived, Arnold left, rightly pissed off, because he did he was really good at what he did at leading soldiers, because he was always in it. He was always in the shit.
Well, isn't that the shitty thing about these big figures we know is oh man, they're these awful people, but they were so charismatic and good at what they did. Think of any of them. That's just how it goes.
Here's the thing about Arnold. He had the charisma of a fucking doornail. It's just that his troops respected him because this man was always in the shit.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't even have to be charisma. It's just they're so good at what they do that anyone will just be yep, let's go.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to it. I want to see a movie about this guy, an impartial movie. On his way back from Fort Ticonderoga to New Haven, he found out that his wife died. So after finding out about his wife's death, he went back, saw his children, and then just kind of went on. I mean, it was tragic, but what was he gonna do? He didn't become an alcoholic like his father. But he ended up eventually. Arnold would lobby for an invasion of Quebec and would volunteer to lead it. This is where he would meet good old George Washington, who commissioned him in the Continental Army as a colonel and put him in charge of the expedition. You see, between commissions, Arnold spent all of his time just studying maps and books because he had gout and he couldn't really move. And he just studied maps and books about the terrain between Maine and Quebec. So his master plan was to take 1,100 men and sneak through the ass cracks of the Canadian wilderness to Quebec and take the fort, the Quebecian fort. That's plural, right? Yeah. While he was to be taking Quebec, the Brigadier General Richard Montgomery would take Montreal. So the whole plan was to take Montreal and Quebec and then just kick the British out of that area, and then they'd have no way to get into the interior of the colonies through Lake Champlain. But in the end, colonial forces would take Montreal, but they would never be able to take Quebec. Remember the 1,100 men that Arnold took with him through the Canadian ass cracks? The way they got through was with 200 1,000-pound boats that were made of dog shit wood. So these motherfuckers leaked, destroying most of their food and almost all of their gunpowder. Actually, almost all of their food too. Like within 2 weeks, they opened up a container full of dried meat and it was just covered in maggots.
Oof.
Yeah.
Big oof. You hate to see it.
You do hate to see it. Drink.
I got a reaction out of Adam. I'm good for the rest of the episode. I will no longer speak.
Oh, great. So another reason why his troops loved Arnold is that he was there carrying the boats with them. He was one of those leaders. Is that he was carrying the boats. He didn't ride a horse. He didn't ride on a boat. He was helping them.
Was this like Pirates of the Caribbean where they're like underwater just walking the boat on the bottom?
Kinda. See, cartography in the mid 1700s wasn't good.
I mean, yeah, you have to like
least. So
yeah,
especially through the ass crack of the Canadian wilderness. So they ended up carrying these 1,000-pound boats and all of their goods and supplies through what was basically the Louisiana Bayou, but 32 degrees.
And without the gators.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Instead, they had what do Canadians have? What, maple leaves?
Geese.
Fucking yes, the geese. Yeah, the geese. That's it.
The old Canadian goose.
You get it. So when Arnold got to Quebec, he had 900 men, so lost 200, with no food, no clothes, and like they did the math, and they were able to ration out 6 shots to a man. So no ammunition, because all of the gunpowder got wet. And the British found out 2 days before and placed 1,000 troops in the Quebec fort. So Arnold would go on to retreat towards Montreal and support Montgomery to take Montreal. There, he was shot in the leg, and his horse fell on top of him. He would become the military governor of Montreal until being forced to retreat in the spring. One of the big things that really set him on the path towards treason was that when they did the retreat, he basically commandeered a fuck ton of supplies from Canadian merchants, and he had this whole organized system to make sure that those merchants got repaid by the U.S. and the colonial Congress. When those goods got to where they needed to go, the officer who was in charge of that fort fucking hated Arnold. So they just left it off to the side, and all of the soldiers just took the supplies with no organization and nothing that Arnold had done. So that meant none of these supplies could be paid back, basically just making the colonial or the Continental Army look like thieves and making Arnold look like a profiteer. So that was a huge thing that led to 2 court-martials and him being raw dogged on a promotion. So after Canada, Washington put Arnold in charge of building a navy on Lake Champlain, which he had to do with almost no resources and 2 trained sailors. So he basically had a bunch of farm boys from fucking Connecticut becoming soldiers, because that works.
It's wild to think, when I'm really thinking about it, it's wild to think of how small the U.S. was at this point.
Oh, it's crazy.
Just the north. It's
insane.
just the Northeast.
Yeah. Like you'll like looking at the battles, it's like a couple hundred guys. Like at most there's like 4,000, 4 or 5,000. It's not like a 20,000 man battle like from World War II.
Well,
It's
then you think
like
of
a couple
wars,
hundred, couple thousand guys.
You think of wars now, and it's fought with like fucking 100 dudes, like in the Middle East. It's
100
like
dudes and like 20 guys in a fucking air-conditioned control room.
Yeah, and just a shit ton of artillery and air support.
Yeah. His little navy.
I guess that's how information plays into it now, though. Like we have so much more information that we can go into battles.
There's no scoutings. Everything's on a satellite.
Yeah. You could just drone a fucking area and be like, all right, well, this is what you're going into. Good luck with your 6 guys.
Yeah.
SEAL Team 6, good luck.
When the British tried to take control of the lake, Arnold would lead them on a wild goose chase. His little navy would be destroyed, and he would be accused of failure and failing to defend Lake Champlain. But he defended the lake and kept the British occupied long enough to where when the British had control of the lake, it was winter, and the lake began to freeze over, and they got pushed back to Canada for a year. So in reality, he bought the Continental Army and the colonies an extra year by himself, essentially, with no men and no supplies.
That was also a mission that was doomed to fail from the second that they came up with the mission.
It's the British Navy. Exactly.
If
there's one fucking thing the British are good at, it's building fucking boats.
Because I don't know how much our listeners actually know about like this type of stuff, but if you know anything about Britain, it's that their army has always been based around the fact that they have always had an amazing fucking navy because they are an island nation. They have always had a solid navy, if not the best.
At this time, the British Army was heavily supplemented with Hessian troops. So German mercenaries were like a huge part of the British Navy at this point, or the British Army, because Britain just didn't have an army. Especially at this time, because most of their army was still recovering from the French Indian War, which they lost.
Real ass smacking there.
No, they won that. They won that one. It was just a fucking expensive ass fucking war. For his effort on Lake Champlain, 10 less senior officers were promoted over him to major general. Even back then, politics were politics. And you had representatives who were friends of officers that hated Arnold. And you had representatives like John Adams who didn't want military heroes holding too much public power. And so, then you had people who just didn't like Arnold because he was loud and reckless.
I was going to say, what's the reason for people not liking him? Because it seems like he's good at what he does.
He was reckless, and he just pissed people off. He was good at what he does, but in doing what he did, he pissed people off.
Well, technically back then, I feel like they shouldn't have fucking cared because war crimes weren't a fucking thing yet.
But here's the thing: like the reason John Adams didn't like him was that he was dealing, like, John Adams saw George Washington, who was a national hero, who was clearly going to become president if this won, and he was clearly going to lead the nation, and he was loved in the public eye. John Adams was worried about basically the military becoming the leaders of the country instead of it being civilian controlled. That was John Adams' worry. He was worried it was going to look a lot like Prussia at the time, where if you were a military hero, you basically became the leader of the country.
Yeah, like an empire.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what Adams was terrified of. And at the end, really, his only friend was Washington and the men that served under him.
Who don't really have a say in anything.
No, but at the end, they really only ever wanted to serve under him. And Washington, like, would always go back to Congress like, hey, promote this guy. Like, he's good. He's really fucking good at what he does. But then again, you have the people who are friends with people that he pissed off, like other officers and other men and just everything around. So one huge thing about the Revolutionary War, up until like 1777, Continental Army was getting its ass kicked, like just all around the board, because like the Hessians who made a large part of the British Army, they were the best mercenaries and best soldiers in the world. You had the British Navy just employing a blockade everywhere, and then you just had really good British officers like I can't remember his name, but like a bunch of British officers who were also really fucking good at their job. And they also had a well-trained army, whereas the U.S. had a bunch of farm boys with rifles. They were good with the rifles, but it was just a bunch of farm boys nonetheless.
Killing an animal and killing a human is still a completely different fucking thing.
Yes. So the Americans, again, getting their ass kicked. The Battle of Saratoga was make or break. Like it was you win this or you lose the war. Placed in charge of the battle was Major General Horatio Gates. Amazing general, a national hero. And he liked Arnold at the beginning, but he came to see Arnold as competition for glory, and to Gates, glory was just as important as victory. During the first Battle of Saratoga in September, Arnold annoyed Gates enough to let him lead an aggressive counterattack against the advancing British forces in the fields outside Fort Saratoga, or outside the fort at Saratoga. And by lead, what I really mean is the entire time he was hacking and slashing away from the top of his horse while yelling at his troops. And his troops loved him for it, because he was there, unlike Gates, who was sitting drinking tea in the middle of the fort. So the only time Arnold left the battle was when he went back to camp to yell at Gates to give him more men, to which Gates remanded him to camp for the rest of the battle, because he was just tired of dealing with Arnold and he wanted him to fuck off. For the next month, so technically the first Battle of Saratoga in September was technically a British victory because they ended up holding the field at the end of the day, but they lost twice as many men as the Americans, a large part because of Arnold. The general who was in charge of the attack on Saratoga would later say that he was expecting a Gates defense, which was just wait for the British to come to him and then defend from a strategic position. That general at the time, it's like, hey, I'm going to bring all this fucking artillery and just bomb the fuck out of them until they surrender, which would have worked. They never anticipated being met on the field. And Arnold would have probably won if he got the men he wanted. For the next month, Gates made it his mission to piss off Arnold, taking away command of his men, rubbing it in how he was skipped over for promotion. And when the second battle came, Gates put Arnold's forces under command of one of the officers that skipped over Arnold. Arnold lost his fucking shit. He had been fighting. These guys that got removed from his command, he'd been fighting with since Canada. He'd become friends. They respected the fuck out of him. They weren't happy, but they were soldiers and they were going to do what they had to do. But Arnold didn't take it like they did. So as soon as the fighting started, so soon after the fighting started, Gates, who was talking to an aide, saw Arnold mount his horse and ride straight into battle. And his men cheered when they saw him, and he dropped one of those great quotes that needs to be in a movie, but isn't, or should only be ever said in a movie. If the day is long enough, we shall have them in hell by night. Pretty good fucking quote. And he went on shouting, giving orders from his horse, and hacking and slashing. At one point, this fucking lunatic, this is one of those reckless things that, like, why people hated him. You'll see why they hated him. At one point, he rode between the lines of the two soldiers. So you got basically warfare at that time was British on one end, Americans on the other, and they just fucking shoot at each other while not moving. Arnold rode through that line on his horse, not getting hit, like a madman. For 150 yards, because he attacked the wrong fort. So that would explain why, Gates fucking hated his guts.
That is a rough one.
Yeah. He gets to where he needs to be, leading his men, when he catches a shot to the leg, to the same leg that got hit while he was in Montreal. His horse falls on the shot leg, and his leg shatters in like 7 different spots because it's the horse and it already caught a bullet. Also, this is the same leg with gout. When his men turn to help him, he orders them to take the goddamn fort. Finally, he gets carried back to camp, where a messenger tells him, General Gates has ordered you to return to camp before you do something reckless. This is while he's on a stretcher with his leg in several pieces. Gates would accept the surrender of the British commander, while Arnold was being told that he'd have to have his leg amputated.
That sounds like fun.
I mean, I got nothing to say. Like, that's just medicine at the time. You just got to cut the damn thing off. Like, you can't do anything.
It gets worse. Arnold would refuse to have his leg get cut off, insisting on having it put in what's called a fracture box for like 7 months. And what a fracture box is basically just a leg immobilizer made back in the day that was like just big enough to fit your leg in. And it was just hammer and nails, and you just fucking threw your leg in there. But when you have
I like how they did. I like how the normal concept, like our normal concept of like doing a splint, which literally would have probably been at least 3 times better than this box, wasn't. No, it was
so. This leg was so fucked up. So because it was a compound fracture, they couldn't bend it properly. Like, you can't set a bone that's that fractured. So when they pulled the leg out of the box, with modern medicine, after with pins and needles and rods and shit.
All of them, yeah.
And when they pulled his leg out, it was maligned and 2 inches shorter than his other leg.
I love it.
Yeah. So he just walked with a limp. And also, again, same leg with gout.
Yeah, that'll get better.
But since he would eventually become the governor of Philadelphia, and he would have his proper rank restored. Like, eventually Congress would give him everything he was originally owed, but Arnold didn't see it as being given to him because he deserved it. He felt like it was given to him because they felt sorry for his injuries. And to Arnold, that wasn't good enough. While governor, he liked to throw... He lived like a king, throwing parties, using public carriages as if they were his own private service. And most likely taking part in corrupt business dealings. He would end up meeting his new wife, Peggy Shipton, who also had a love for the finer things in life. People started asking where Arnold got his money, and because the salary of a continental officer wasn't that high to begin with, and you also had to assume that Congress had the money to pay. And that was assuming that the continental dollar was worth something. And it wasn't, because it was the continental dollar. It was basically a piece of paper that was an IOU.
Wow, it's almost like our fucking currency now.
Exactly. So Arnold took out loan after loan, which began while being accused of corruption and being denied for another promotion. Now, what does one do when they are in mountains of debt? While being a publicly acclaimed general and one of the most trusted friends of the commander-in-chief. Would anyone like to guess what you do?
Sorry, for when you what?
When you're a publicly acclaimed general and are in mountains of debt and are also one of the best friends of the commander of the Continental Army.
You commit treason, go to the British.
Yay! Well, you sell your country out for 20,000 pounds.
Yep. Ooh, money that's backed.
Yes. As Benjamin Franklin put it, Judas sold out one man. Benedict Arnold sold out 3 million. In short, Arnold communicated. So there's a whole fucking thing behind the actual treason that I'm not going to get into. I'm just going to give you the abridged version. In short, Arnold communicated with British Major John Andre to turn over West Point for money and a British commission. The plot would fail when Andre was caught behind American lines as a spy holding secret information signed by Arnold. Arnold would hear about Andre's capture 2 hours before Washington would learn of the treachery and flee to British lines. Andre, a well-liked and respected officer in the British Army, would be hung as a traitor, something that most of British high command blamed solely on Benedict Arnold. So he didn't have friends there either. He would lead a handful of raids on American economic targets that were way too costly on human life and resources, and would flee to London just before the British surrender in the Americas. A few unsuccessful business ventures in London and Canada would leave him broke and in debt before dying in London on June 14th, 1801. At the age of 60, lacking the one thing he spent his whole life trying to get: respect. So what do you guys think of Benedict Arnold now? I mean, you didn't know much about him.
I thought Jeff froze for a moment.
So
that's my Jeff. Your reaction is the same way I feel. I'm still debating over it.
I don't. There's no good reason.
Excuse for treason.
Yeah, there's no good excuse for. I'm gonna make it rhyme so we can put it on a shirt. There's no good excuse or reason for treason, but like there's not. I'm sorry. I don't care. There's no real good. Maybe there is, and I just can't think of it. But this isn't a good. Being in debt and shit isn't a good enough reason. The whole like being kept out of like getting promotions and shit like that because people don't like you because you're reckless and blah blah blah. Like you kind of need that on a battlefield, especially back then. You have to be a savage. Like you have to think like we're not far into the technology of guns at this point. We're still basically barbarian Vikings when it comes to war.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of need that recklessness if back then, if you wanted to be good at anything. That's why, like, because if you go back to our last episode about Boone Helm, there's a reason he was always the toughest guy in town. He's fucking reckless with his life. Like,
yeah,
to be that type of person, you have to have a certain mindset. His reasoning for becoming a traitor is fucking stupid. And also hearing the story, I remember it now, but like there's a reason it didn't work. Like it was a dumb fucking idea. Like if you're gonna do it, make it work better.
It really. So the only reason it didn't work was Andre was a fucking idiot. So he was 2 miles away from British lines when he got stopped by a couple of like fucking hicks that most of them couldn't read. Only one of them could read. And when he got stopped, instead of saying, "Hey, yeah, I have a pass from Benedict Arnold, you're one of your most famous and respected generals. Here you go." He goes, "I'm a British officer, still in American lines." "Oh, all right. Well, we're going to stop you and strip you." And they found the note and they're like, "Oh, that's bad." And they turned it in. Instead of just saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm an American officer." And, you know, you show these guys the note from Arnold and you get through, or they're British and you get taken by the British. And then, you know, the officers that sent you on this mission realize, "Oh, hey, that's our guy." And then they take you and release you. There's really no reason it shouldn't have worked. It's just that Andre decided to be an idiot.
Up until the treason, I mean, I have no issues with him. If he wouldn't have committed treason, I think he would be like an American hero. I think he would be up there with like George Washington. Like he would be
with what he did. He'd be an American badass like Teddy Roosevelt and George Patton. Yeah. There would be movies on movies about him. There are actually monuments for Benedict Arnold in America. At the site of the Battle of Saratoga is just a boot. It's a leg where basically Arnold lost his leg. And it says, "Here's a monument to one of the greatest American generals, to an American hero." And it doesn't give a name. It's just his leg. And then at West Point, you have a monument. You have like a monument with 7 names and several homages to generals. You have Washington, you have Gates, you have Morgan, you have so many generals there. And then there's another one where it's just the date of his birth and death, and it's just empty. We acknowledge, like, the American military and American history, the American ethos recognizes that Arnold played such a crucial role to American independence. But because of that last act, he is not given the one thing he wanted, which was respect and fame. He didn't even want fame. He just wanted respect. And he lost all of that.
It's, I don't know, like, with not really knowing a lot going in, like, no, I don't think he was a horrible guy or as bad as I guess history would play him up to be. But
the original documentaries or the original biographies from like the 1800s make him to be like a bastard from hell, that he was always going to be a traitor.
Which I get though, which is like, I understand
then,
because back then, we're trying to get away from from the British, and all of a sudden he's like doing that type of like that's fucked. But as of today, like looking at it, it's like I respect what he did before treason. I can respect it, like, but treason is so not okay. It's like the highest.
It's a high crime.
It's technically the highest crime in America, really.
Yeah.
Like, you will pay the ultimate price for it. It is a capital punishment, federally capital punishment fucking crime. And there's a reason for that.
When he was doing those raids on American targets, all the officers in that area had specific orders from George Washington that if they capture Arnold, he's to be hung immediately. Like, hang him. If you capture him, he goes on the noose.
Because you think about it, like, very honorable what he did up until it, but with treason, the reason it's such a high crime is you now put everyone's life in jeopardy.
So another thing is that Washington, like, he was almost Washington's best friend. Like, Washington had the utmost respect for him, and so originally he wasn't going to be placed in charge of West Point. He was going to be placed in charge of Washington's left flank in like a huge battle. He was essentially going to be Washington's number 3, but at that point he had already committed to selling out in treason. So he's like, no, I don't want that. Give me the fucking West Point. And he made a huge thing with Washington. Washington's like, I mean, all right, this is beneath your station, but okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's because, like I was trying to say, like, treason, you now put everyone in that nation's life at risk.
As Benjamin Franklin put it, he sold out 3 million.
Yeah, like, you put everyone's life at risk, and you put our constitutional republic in jeopardy. Like,
yeah,
and that's kind of one of the ultimate prices, like, to pay.
I think it would be an interesting movie.
100%. It would be a very good movie.
See this movie. I like an impartial movie about this. I would love to
even
see
if
that.
it was like a documentary with a bunch of really good like Revolutionary War reenactment people, like
kind of like that Roman shit that Netflix put out.
Like, because people who do reenactments,
it doesn't even necessarily have to be like an impartial, like, just tell the truthful story, like, and make Benedict
people like him at the beginning.
Yeah, like, make him the hero of the movie until the last 15 minutes. Like,
there's a movie like that. What is it? Is it called the Last Hour, the Highest Hour, something like that? It's about Winston Churchill though. And it makes you feel the longest hour. It makes Winston Churchill seem like the whole movie. You're like,
darkest hour.
Darkest hour, yeah, that. Longest hour is something else.
Yeah. But like, that movie makes you feel like, why did everyone hate this guy? Like, why is Winston Churchill hated? And then like the end of the movie is like, there it is.
I really like that movie. That was a really good movie.
It's a really good. Yeah, I watched that in high school, I think, for our.
I watched that for an ethics class in college.
Actually, that might have been it too. I think I've watched it twice. I think one of them was in high school.
It wasn't out while we were in high school.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it came out while Morgan.
It would have been ethics then. Yeah, it would have been an ethics class.
We
because doesn't Maloney Maloney shows it? Yeah.
It came out right around the same time Dunkirk came out, because it's almost the same story.
Basically, yeah.
Like, and I double featured them.
I need to watch Dunkirk. It's on my list on HBO Max. I need to watch
it.
it. No, not good. Is Midway any good? Anyone seen Midway? That's on my list.
I haven't seen Midway yet.
I haven't seen Midway. I want to.
We should watch that next time we're together.
Okay.
I'll take Dunkirk off.
So like one of the huge things, like there's a bunch of other battles that I didn't tell you guys about. There's one battle where his horse got shot out from under him again, and like a British soldier walked up to him like, I've captured you, and Arnold just looks at me and goes, it was basically the fuck you have, and he just like pulls a pistol out and shoots him, and then gets out from under the horse, and then like fights off like 10 other British soldiers that tried to capture him because the British wanted to capture him. He's Benedict Arnold. He's the general other than Washington. If we capture him, that's huge. And then they tried, and he basically just murdered all of them until his guys showed up.
Nick, what's the name of the book that you read?
The Notorious Benedict Arnold.
Is it on Audible?
It is. That's where I listen to it.
Can you just send me a link to it?
I can. Yes, I can. It's an amazing book.
It sounds like it. This was I enjoyed this story.
But it was only 7 hours. Which is short compared to what I listened to.
I'm listening to an 18-hour book.
I actually unsubscribed from Audible and everything because I have learned that I read books faster than what Audible does them at, and it's just easier for me to read. And I also retain more knowledge while reading because while listening, I'll be like at work listening, and I can't make notes while doing it because I would have to listen along and type everything out. But also I'm at work, I have to be paying attention, and I'll just literally daze out like watching something, and then I'll miss like 5 minutes of the book, and then I'm like, fuck me.
Yeah, the only books I listen to on Audible are just like general reading ones, not anything I have to like pay attention to.
I do thoroughly like this. I think this would be actually a decent type of a series for patron.
I'd love to do one on Rommel. I'd love to do one on Lee.
I think Lee would be a really interesting one.
There's another one I wanted to do. I could like Napoleon or the Kaiser during World War I. Like it's if you guys want to see more of this, I'd love to do it. I am a huge history nerd. I'd love to do one on the Romanovs of Russia. That would be amazing.
I do want to end up at some point doing a multi-part series about Rasputin, but I will definitely be needing help for that because that is a hunk of history to go through.
Yeah, that's so good. Again, you have so many historical figures that are crowded by what society thinks of them. You have ultimately bare bones a American hero that made a really bad choice. And that's something that history will never tell you. They'll always tell you, oh, he tried to sell out the US. They'll never tell you that on several occasions, he was responsible solely for the founding and defense of the Continental Army and the continents at the time, or the colonials at the time.
It's wild. I mean, it's interesting. Just to wrap it up, anyone got any last things? I mean, I think we kind of just went through them, but last little tidbits you want to get out there?
My steak was very good.
Fantastic. Yeah, if you were wondering why Adam didn't speak most of the time, Adam was stuffing his face.
Yeah.
No, I liked it. I think this would be a great series for like patrons. If we can, it can also just be a normal thing we can come back to every once in a while, like after a couple episodes, or maybe we go through like a long series where we do 2 or 3 episodes on one specific subject, and then we just, while I'm researching for the next one, we just hop into one of these.
I mean, I was able to write this in like a day, so
yeah.
Granted, I was able to listen to this in a day. I had already listened to this. So, fun fact: the whole reason I know so much about Benedict Arnold is that I'm basically doing him for a D&D campaign, and so I listened to a book to prepare and make that character.
Understandable. All right. Well, on that note, you can listen to us anywhere that you find podcasts. We're on everything except for, it's like Pandora, right? Like we're not on Pandora.
We're on Pandora.
We are on Pandora.
We did this last time.
Oh, big oof. All right. Well, we're on Pandora now also. So, but yeah, you can follow us on any social media at You Hate to See It. Specifically on Twitter, it is at YOUH82CIT. Please fucking comment on stuff. Do like fucking tag us and stuff. We would love to interact. If you go to Podbean, you go on to Podbean, you type in "You Hate to See It" up in the upper right-hand corner of that page is become a patron. You pay a different amount of money, you get different stuff, you get different types of episodes. Maybe this might be a thing that's on there. You get unedited if you pay $3. All that good stuff. It also basically goes into our podcast just for us to get better equipment and just continue to produce this, really. Because at this point, we're just doing it out of the fun of it, because I enjoy it. I think we all enjoy it. It's fun. It's hard sometimes to when everyone gets busy, but overall, creating a podcast is a pretty fucking fun thing to do, especially if you just drink and talk about shit.
Yeah,
most of the
exactly. I was
time.
gonna say, consider the fact that all I did was read a script and drink heavily.
Yeah, I mean, that's all we do. But I mean, based off of that, I mean, Adam, you or Nick, do your thing. Do the thing. Do that thing.
One thing that we can tell about us, and not the big difference between us and Benedict Arnold, we are professionals.
And fearless.
Yes. Wait, no,
Actually,
now we are Benedict Arnold. Hold on,
Oh
wait.
fuck! No, we need to not be Benedict.
Yeah, we
We're
are not
fucking
Benedict.
pussies.
Yeah, we're fucking cowards. But you know what we also aren't? Traitors. And we also don't have standards. That's basically what I was going for.
We don't have standards, but we will never commit treason. So
Yes. Yeah. Basically.
at least
yeah.
willingly. Maybe someone will trick me into it at some point in my life. But
That's called sedition, and that's technically not your fault.
yeah. Also, if I know that much, I would hope that I would know how to not give it up. But
Yeah.
Adam, do that other thing.
I thought Adam was this.
I got no.
Do your thing.
My thing. Fuck you, or better than you. Go suck a huge, massive, jumbo baloney cock.
Clit.